Chapter 17. Every grunt, roar, and snort. The locals made their way up to the shady patch where Silas and his family and friends were taking a lemonade break. Dad looked shocked to see them all coming down the trail. What are they doing here? Guessing news travels fast in these parts, Archie said with a conspiratorial wink. And perhaps somebody called them. They came to help out with the repairs. Raffy grinned. Sounds like Sarah's handiwork. She's always up to something. The cars kept coming from town, filling up the parking lot. It turned out that many of the townsfolk were former campers who had wonderful memories of Camp Pride Rock and Scarlet. They heard about the accident and came to pitched in and helped out until Dad felt better. But Silas had his own theory about why everyone was showing up to help the camp. And it wasn't a phone call from Sarah. It was the staff. He tightened his grip on it, knowing that it was the real reason for his lucky turn of events. It restored the camp spirit, he thought with enthusiasm. Even Zazu was excited. He cawed as he perched on it. A tall woman with long white hair and dark skin introduced herself as Dakota Whitehorse. It would be a great blessing if Camp Pride Rock reopened next summer, she said, shaking Dad's hand. Good for the town, too. It's not been the same since its closed. A group of teenagers followed after her, who turned out to be her kids and nieces and nephews, and great for the next generation, she added with a smile. Silas spotted the familiar face of Billy from the gas station. She climbed out of her dusty white van. He still had a bad feeling about her. Billy shifted her gaze to Silas. She glanced at the staff clutched in his hand, then narrowed her eyes and frowned. Silas felt a deep chill. He didn't trust her. He didn't know why, but she gave him the creeps. Oh, look, there's Billy, Timothy said, spotting concerned look on Silas's face. Don't worry about her. She means well, but she has a funny way of showing it. Yeah, you could say that again, Silas said with another shudder. She told me bad things happen to folks who live up here. What do you think she meant by that? Who knows, Natasha said, exchanging looks with Timothy, like special twin language, and then shrugging. Too much time in the desert can make you superstitious. She also said outsiders don't last long in the desert, he added in a low voice, and I've noticed her van around the campgrounds a lot. She almost ran me over the other day. Just superstitious nonsense, Natasha said. Don't think nothing of it. Yeah, she's harmless, Timothy said. She helps Mom out with deliveries. That's why she's always up in the Pride Lands. And between deliveries in town and the gas station, she's always in a rush and busy. See all those dents on her van? They didn't get there on their own. The twins giggled, but Silas didn't feel cheered up. Plus, he got the feeling that they weren't telling him everything. He wondered if Billy was talking about his aunt's accident when she said bad things happen. He still had no idea how Aunt Scarlet had died, just that it was sudden. Before Silas could press the twins anymore, Archie stood up and started putting everyone to work. All right, stop lollygagging in the shade and let's get our hands dirty, Archie proclaimed. He gestures to Silas and the twins and the teens. That means you too. Don't let the outsiders slack off, Billy said, and not in a friendly way. Hush up and stop your grousing, Archie said, shooting her a chastising look. They're not outsiders, they're family. Everyone chimps in around here, just how Scarlet would want it. Billy didn't say anything else, but she also didn't look convinced. Her gaze lingered on Silas a little too long as he grabbed a shovel and followed Archie toward the piles of gravel. Silas shoveled gravel until his arms ached, and then he shoveled some more. Everyone was pinching in all across the Pride Lands, painting the buildings, repairing the thatching on the roofs of the huts, mending fences, and re-graveling the hiking trails and roads. Silas set his shovel down and grabbed the staff, heading for the shady patch by Archie's shed to grab some water. Sweat trickled down his face, stinging his eyes. He wiped it away and fished a cold bottle out of the red and white cooler, which was filled with ice and drinks. Whispered voices reached his ears. The staff pulsed as if warning him. Silas felt a jolt. Intrigued, he poked his head around to the back of the groundskeeper's shed. 3 figures were huddled in the shadows, talking in low voices. "Business hasn't been the same since the camp shut down," the first person complained. "You know that. We're in big trouble." It was Billy. He recognized her voice. "The camp is the lifeblood of the town. The Pride Lands. It's everything." That was Archie. Silas felt his breath catch in his throat. Who was the third person? He stayed hidden and tried to listen in, picking out bits and pieces, though it was hard to hear it all. But then the scent of cinnamon and waffles hit his nose. It was Sarah. What was she doing there? "Lifeblood," Billy said. "You mean the blood that was spilled on this land?" "Come on. You know what happened to Scarlet was a terrible accident. Nothing more," Archie said in a sharp voice. "Don't go around spreading rumors and scaring folks." "Oh, Scarlet was one of our own," Billy said. "We adopted her. Or maybe she adopted us," she added with a chuckle. But then she darkened. "But I can't say the same for her family. Newcomers don't belong here, and you know it. They won't last in the desert. Outsiders shouldn't be running the camp. Scarlet promised us. It should be one of us." "Oh, stop already," Sarah interrupted. "Billy, relax and enjoy yourself for once. You said the same thing about Scarlet at first, before she proved you wrong. Isn't that right?" "Scarlet was different, and you know it," Billy said, not sounding convinced. "And now there's another terrible accident in the Pride Lands. Sounds like the place is cursed." "Hush up already," Archie said, cutting her off. "Stop causing trouble. If bad rumors get around, it could ruin everything for us and scare away the campers. This time, for good." A great fluttering of wings exploded next to him. It was Zazu. The parrot took off from the staff and flew at them, calling loudly in alarm. "Beware the arch! Danger! Danger! Keep out!" Their eyes snapped to Silas. He cringed back, feeling his cheeks flush. They'd caught him eavesdropping on them. Zazu flew at Billy, who glared up at the parrot. "Can't someone shut the bird up?" Billy snapped, glaring first at Zazu and then at Silas. The way Billy said that gave Silas a bad feeling. Sarah quickly hurried over, summoning the twins, who caught Zazu and took him back home. But the whole way back, the parrot kept flapping his wings and calling the strange warning. What did it mean? He also wasn't sure what to make of Sarah and Archie talking to Billy. Clearly, they were all friends with a long history at the camp. But if they trusted Billy, did that mean she was okay? All he knew was Zazu clearly didn't like her. He would have to keep a closer eye on her. That night, Sarah cooked a big supper for everyone in the mess hall, which echoed with jovial laughter and chatter. With all the former campers and their kids, the hall was filled to the brim for the first time in a long time. She plopped the platters down with a flourish. "It's just like back in the old days," Timothy said in a cheerful voice, loading his plate up with mashed potatoes and spicy grilled chicken. "Geez, you make it sound like we're 1,000,000 years old," Natasha said, buttering her cornbread. "That was like 2 years ago, remember? That's when the camp shut down?" Silas asked, piecing together the time frame. Timothy nodded. "Well, fewer campers came every year, and then it shut down." Silas felt his heart leap as he stroked the staff propped up next to him against the table. He patted it thankfully. "Well, now that the camp spirit is back, I'll make sure the camp gets up and running again." He scanned the packed tables, recognizing some of the townsfolk from their pictures on the walls standing by Aunt Scarlet. His parents looked around the room with nostalgic expressions. This could be their future. Dad stood up, wobbling on one leg even though Mom shot him a warning look. He tapped his water glass with a fork to make a toast. Gradually, the chatter dried up. "The accident was a blessing in disguise," he said, raising his glass and sweeping his gaze around the room at the eclectic crowd gathered there. It brought everyone back together. I'm so grateful for all the help. I guess sometimes bad things happen for good reasons. Hakuna Matata, came the enthusiastic response as everyone clinked their glasses together. Silas toasted with the twins. To Camp Pride Rock. They giggled. Basking in the glow from a day of hard work where they made a ton of progress repairing the camp and now enjoying a feast in the crowded mess hall, Silas had forgotten all about the weird chest and the ghostly lion. Instead, he focused on one thing. The camp spirit is back, he thought, and all thanks to the staff. Everything was getting better. Dad was already healing and more mobile, despite Mom's trying to keep him still. Better yet, the help of the townsfolk that day, they even repaired the rope bridge. Now it was stronger and safer than ever before. In fact, suddenly it felt like everything in his life was about to get fixed up like new. Actually, better than new. For the first time since their cross-country move, Camp Pride Rock started to feel like home. With that cheerful thought, Silas volunteered to help Sarah and the twins clean up. The townsfolk had already left, starting the long trek back down to town, while Mom, Dad, and George headed back to the cabin. Dad needed extra time to make the walk with his crutches, and George needed to get plenty of sleep, of course. Otherwise, how would he have the energy to wake up crying at the top of his lungs later that night? Silas wiped down the tables and swept the floors, then poked his head into the kitchen, where the twins and Sarah were finishing up. He wanted to say goodnight. They lived in the apartment attached to the back of the mess hall. It turned out that the twins had even grown up there. Careful getting back home, Sarah said in her motherly way. It's dark out there. Silas held up the staff and his LED flashlight. Oh, don't worry, he said with a wink. I came prepared. He caught sight of his reflection in the dark windows. He almost didn't recognize himself with the flashlight and staff, and no fear in his eyes. He looked strong and brave. Something about Camp Pride Rock had changed him for the better. He wasn't a scaredy cat anymore. With that, he left the mess hall, the door snapping closed behind him on their strings. The sun had set fully, and the moon was waning, so the night had turned darker. Though it had been sweltering during the day without humidity, a chill had quickly taken hold of the air. He shivered as he walked, shining the flashlight ahead of him. The bluish beam bounced with each step. His boots clamped against the freshly laid gravel. The trail was so much clearer and easier to walk. No more sinking into sand. He felt good that their hard work had paid off. He scanned the Pride Lands, but they were blanketed in thick darkness. He could see little beyond his flashlight's glow. A million stars twinkled like tiny diamonds overhead, while the barest sliver of moon sank behind the flat-topped mesas. He was about halfway back to the cabin when he heard loud rustling in the underbrush. He felt warm breath wafted over his neck and heard the crunch of gravel. He jumped away and jerked around with the flashlight, just in time to see a quick flash of green eyes and tawny fur. But then it quickly darted away and slunk back into the shadows. Something was out there. Was it the mountain lion? His heart hammered into his throat, while his breath caught. He scanned the darkness, flicking the beam around, but he couldn't see the lion anywhere. That was a bad sign. Behind him on the other side of the trail, more sounds echoed from the bushes. Silas jerked his flashlight around, catching sight of 3 dark shadows scampering out of sight. Silas froze with fright and stared at them. These creatures looked about the size of large dogs and had spiky fur on their backs. Their eyes glowed in the flashlight beam, bright green, before the creatures disappeared, scattering off into the shadows. What are they? He thought in a panic. Silas knew one thing. He didn't want to wait around and find out. He increased his pace, fueled by adrenaline and fear. But the faster he went, the more rustling he heard behind him. They were tracking him, stalking him, and they were smart. He whipped the flashlight around, trying to catch them in the light and scare them off, but they made sure to stay out of the beam this time. They learned that freaked him out even more. His heart thumped faster and faster, screaming at him. Run! Silas broke into a sprint, clutching both the staff and flashlight for protection. The fresh gravel crunched under his boots, but the rustling noises followed him, and then something else. Idiots! What are you waiting for? Get him! The command yet genteel voice echoed out from the underbrush. Silas whipped around, shining the flashlight. Something scampered over the gravel behind him. Then he heard it, and it brought chills to his skin. That eerie laughter peppered in the darkness. Silas turned around and noticed the shadows moving faster and faster. It was as if the command that echoed out of the darkness had driven them into a murderous frenzy. They were coming straight for him.